everyone, welcome. So today I have my very good friend Deana with us. She is someone I run with on the daily, part of a very special group that the Lord has put together. And so we are in constant contact. We are always sharing the things that we're getting and receiving, looking for solutions to all these problems that we kind of see going on so that we can understand and we can have our eyes open and we can know what to do with those things. So without further ado, we are going to talk today kind of feel like it's a now word, a place that we need to be paying attention, things that we need to be looking into. And some of this I've talked a little bit about in dreams before if you have followed this channel. And then, so I kind of I'm the dreamer. I see through that the Lord speaks to me, kind of downloads and gives me revelation after the dreams, sometimes interceding in my dreams. And the last few weeks have been very intense when it comes to that. And Deana is like the dot connector, the extreme major researcher. She gets the downloads and she puts all these things together. And I'm like, whoa, how'd you just come up with that? And we call her the thoroughbred trainer. And so anyway, Deana, I just want you to introduce yourself real fast to everyone.
I'm Deana, and I'm here to play.
I'm here to play.
Yes. And I love connecting the dots, and I love playing with our team. I mean, like the way God, he's given us information, and I love seeing how he speaks to you in dreams and how he speaks to you in visions and moments, and then where my brain starts connecting dots, and it's just really cool to see how our whole team comes together. So much fun.
Absolutely. And so I wish more of us could have been on today, but people had things going on. But I do want to honor them. Deana and I both want to honor them because this whole part that we all have, this little piece of the puzzle, and then we all bring it together in this major picture. So anyway, if you're watching that, I just want you to know that we honor you as well. Okay, so I'm just going to jump into this of how it started. So I had some dreams last night. I wake up this morning, I'm processing through them. I wrote a little bit of it down last night. And then I'm in my kitchen making my kids breakfast before school this morning. And I look down in the bowl and I want to show you what is sitting in it, okay? So when I see this, I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay, so I really pause. I start reflecting again on the dreams because I've had a lot of dreams around this, which is what symbolizes to me as the trident. You can see it, the trident. And water events. And I think I've given you guys a lot of information when it comes to the water events that I have seen, but also what does that signify? Are they metaphorical? Are they literal? What can we do about them? Because remember, if we see something, it's not just to have the knowledge about it, it's what are you doing with the knowledge that you are being given. And so I just want to tell you just for a moment kind of what that symbolizes and show you, I think a lot of people have already connected this dot right now, but I'm going to tell you a few things about it, and then I'm going to give it over to Deana so that she can maybe connect a few more for you. Now, when you see the trident, in mythology, it symbolizes Neptune or Poseidon, which is who? The god of the sea who travels the world, and he holds sovereign, we've been talking a lot about that word, so I want you to see the perversion in that word, sovereign sway over the world. It symbolizes power, the number 3, 3 and 1, Trinity, unity, opposition, beginning, middle, and end. Neptune is the belief that it holds the power over the 3 principalities, which are the heaven, earth, and hell. Okay, so in that symbology, this goes across many religions, many myths. These gods also have many different names depending on what culture that you were looking at. So what I had dreamed about last night was a water event, and then I wake up this morning, and this is sitting in a bowl on my counter. I'm sure one of my kids had brought it in, but the significance was I had never seen this before until after I had the dream last night. So, Deana, tell us more about it.
Well, I think it's interesting because the day that Putin entered into Ukraine and all that stuff started going down, I started having dreams. And one major dream I had was that I was sitting in a Russian university, and the Lord was basically showing me when I woke up that not only was he going to show me genealogy and I was going to understand that, but I was about to have an education upload, right? And so I started learning all these different things, but one of the pieces that makes sense to what you're saying today, and I am going to try to show the symbol, is this. See, this is the crest of Ukraine. I know that's backwards, but this is the crest of Ukraine, and it is the Trident. When you start looking at other things like the Caesarian symbol, this is also huge. A lot of people are learning about the Caesarian Empire, they want to call it other names right now that I won't say, but it's just really interesting because the season that we're in and everything that the Lord started giving you download, you just see all these pieces clicking together in my head. And these symbols are no small thing. In history, they were really big because they helped people be identified by their group. And this trident, of course, is no small symbol. Back to you.
Right. No small thing. And so what I want to point us towards is more that what I see here is that what I was shown specifically in my dream last night, that there is a man-made water event that is planned. Now, when we see things, whether you want to say, I saw them in the second heaven, God's just downloading to them, whatever your language is around them, I'm just picking it up. It's what I see. I'm having dreams about, I'm having visions about, however that language is for you. It's a warning. And when we receive warnings and we are able to see behind the veil of things that are nefariously being planned to hurt or harm, do we have a piece in that? And can we step into our sovereignty over something that thinks it is sovereign and that it is playing God and that it is the rule and reign of the earth? Can we, in our own sovereignty as ambassadors of earth, as the citizens of heaven, as the authority who has been given, as a representative, a magistrate from the kingdom, can we step into that and say, no, you're not going to do that. I see it. So when you bring awareness to something, which is what I felt like, is like, hey, I want to show you something that's planned so that you can bring awareness to something and say, no, we're not going to allow anyone to be harmed. I've had so many dreams about tsunamis, about major earthquakes. But I want to say there's a difference in a man-made one and one that happens naturally. And so I know there's tons of people who are having dreams right now about earthquakes, tsunamis, floods. Those things can be very metaphysical because there's a cleansing and a rebirth and renewal happening. But at the same time, there's also some plans behind the scene to bring those things forward, to bring about new systems, to bring about new structures, to bring in new forms of government that maybe the people would not have gotten into alignment with prior to that. And one specific that we have been brought to over and over and over is London Bridge. Now, when I say London Bridge, I know many people are going to start relating that to water events. They're going to relate it to the financial system. They're going to relate it to the kingdom, the monarchy in England through the Queen right now. And so think about all of those. So we are talking about some literal things, but we are also talking about some metaphorical, symbolic things going on. And so, Deana, do you have anything you want to add before we go forward with that?
No, I absolutely. I just want to back her and say that whatever is about to be said can be both seen symbolically or literally, or we can see things that are happening behind the scenes, and this represents something bigger in nature than just a bridge that we're talking about. But it also can mean the actual bridge. So the way the Lord is downloading to her, and the way the Lord is downloading to the group, just know you always take everything back for the Lord, but He might be showing you a lot of things in what we're saying.
Okay, so in that, I am pulling up a dream right now that I shared. I think I shared this a little over 2 years ago publicly, but this dream, I think the first time that we started having dreams, our group around London Bridge was, in 2018, maybe 2019. And last year, I put up this over on Instagram that just said, watch London. And I'm just going to read what I put out. Now, this was before the series of dreams that started. This was just the very beginning. All right, so after a series of dreams where I was literally above London watching it, I felt I wanted to share here. But what was I watching? Was it just London? I literally would just be above the skyline in the dreams watching it. It was so simple, yet so literal, to be a watchman over London. Now, what London symbolized to me at that time was the financial hub, because I started to have all of the dreams surrounding our financial system at the same time. Now, back in 2021, I came back to this because I went back to find my list of dreams, and I found something I had forgotten. One of the dreams that I had specifically said to watch London in, I had first began to be drawn to Beirut, and I was watching it. And over the weekend events in Lebanon, Beirut, it really pressed me that I was watching a collapse of something. So if you remember back then, that Lebanon, they had a financial system collapse where people were in the streets, they were banging on the banks, basically saying, give me my money, as some of the banks had been shut down. So again, I was taken back to London Bridge, watch London. And then that kind of set off a whole other series within our group of what are we actually watching here and what's going on. One thing I want to bring up, and Deana, I'm going to turn this over to you, is we have to look at London, the Vatican, and DC, because what do all three of those have in common? They have an obelisk. We are talking about a financial hub, we are talking about a political hub, and we are talking about a religious hub. And how do those three in a triangular pattern kind of operate together?
Exactly. Okay, well, we just want to make sure which direction you want me to go, because we're talking about London Bridge, because those three all
yes, I just wanted to bring up that there is a connection between these principalities and powers working together, and you're also talking about a trident that's got three different things here. We've got a political spirit, we've got a religious spirit, and we've got this governmental reverse perverse perversion that you always like to use. I love that term, reverse perverse. All kind of going on within this with some man-made things to self-fulfill maybe their own prophecies.
Right, and notice how the number well, we have learned that the number 3 is such a big deal to them, and they've taken it and reversed it to make it be what they want it to be. Notice how you have 3, London, Vatican, and DC, and then on your trident you have 3 points on the trident that are very key positions right now in their dynamic and in their structure. So I think that's all I have for that right this second.
Okay, so as I woke up from this dream last night, there were so many different pieces, and I wrote down all the things on green paper because green was this very big theme in the dream, and I kept seeing all of these things that were just very green, and that symbolizes to me health and wealth and abundance, new life, rebirth, renewal. It wasn't dead and dull. See my Texas accent coming out.
I know, I love it. Keep it.
And it wasn't dull. It was very vibrant, and it was green. And I also know what that symbolizes to me when I see things that are very lush and prosperous. And so what I saw that was trying to be used for harm and hurt and pain was being flipped on their heads to be used in the opposite direction. But here's the thing. People want to keep saying justice is upon the earth. And we know that this wealth transfer is happening. We know that the financial systems and the governmental systems and the education systems and the religious systems that have been operating to keep people in bondage and oppression for a very long time, they're all coming to the light because everything that's been hidden in darkness is coming to the light. But as people start saying, yeah, justice is upon the earth, but they somehow in their subconscious, whether consciously or unconsciously, they still want to get into the fact of, well, those bad things really have to happen because I've been conditioned to believe what they are doing has to happen. And that's not the truth. There have been some amazing seeds that have been sown in light and in love and from the kingdom, the true kingdom, that don't have to operate in this worldly kingdom where these people have set themselves up as kings under a false kingdom to bring forward some of these things.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anything to add?
No, keep
Okay. All right. So I'll keep going. Okay. So I'm just going to read for a second what I was shown. Okay. So most people have an expectation that these things are already done because we're seeing them in our dream. So we see a water event in our dream. Well, we're just being warned in advance. Now, can it be a warning in advance so that we can prepare? Absolutely. But sometimes when you start pressing in and praying and seeking revelation, taking it further, asking other intercessors, what is the other piece that other people have? You start to see, well, wait a second, can we do something about that if we call it out? Can we, everything kind of manifests itself from the spiritual into the physical. So why are we being shown these things that are being done behind the veil that most people can't see, or maybe they don't want to see? They don't want to have an awareness because it's just easier not to look, right? But see, people who are awakened to this, they have a faith and an expectation. We're moving that mountain. You're not doing that because we are taking back our rightful place to have dominion. We're not having dominion. Like, Deana, I don't have dominion over you, right? But I do have dominion over the earth, over the place that I have been given to steward. And so that's what I saw about this whole justice upon the earth thing. And then the main thing I think is that, it's a kingdom operates under the king's domain. We are supposed to be the king. So the king of kings and lord of lords, who's the little king? Who's the little lord underneath the king? But what we've had is a perversion of the truth of these people who have set themselves up as the king and then have basically ruled and reigned over all the people. And because these systems are in place, the worldly systems, people say, well, I just have to do that because it's what it's always been and I just have to continue. But do you really have to continue? How do you step away from that? How do you operate outside of that and put yourself back into the dominion that we were actually given over the earth? You can go back to Genesis 1. It was dominion over what? The earth, the water. What are we talking about right now? I lost my little symbol here, but the trident over the water, that someone thinks that they have control over the water. Mm-hmm. But
which makes me think of maritime laws.
Exactly. Oh, the maritime laws. Do you want to mention anything about that?
Well, if you've done any research on maritime laws, it's really interesting because that goes all the way back to the Roman period. And when we think that the fall of Rome occurred, it did, because that's what history tells us. But then there's a version of things that have happened over time that we've continued to come across over and over and over, where Rome just continued, it just looked different. And the maritime laws are a set of laws that all bodies of land operate on because they have water that surrounds them. So each body of land surrounded by water operates underneath the jurisdiction of that particular law. And it gets a little bit complicated, and I start to feel like, how do I describe this in like 3 seconds? I can't. So, but we'll continue. That's a longer discussion. So hopefully.
But that's a great place of showing someone trying to still take dominion and rule over something that isn't theirs to rule and reign over.
Right.
That's the basic question. Okay, so the second place I'm going to go is in the dream. So first of all, the justice is upon the earth, okay? And the scales are trying to be weighed and balanced right now. You've got, dark and light, and they're fighting. And think about your sweeping up in your house, and then all the dust is in the air. That's what people are feeling, that chaotic just energy. Like when you step into a room, and you're like, oh, something is not right in here. Oh, who's been fighting in here? You can feel that when you walk into someone's space, right? So on the earth right now, we very much feel this thing, and people, they don't feel in harmony. They feel off balance. And so what I saw was these two choices that people were going to have to make. You could get into agreement with the plans, the things that people have seen in dreams around the warnings, or okay, well, that just has to happen. And I do believe that there are some that have to happen, but they are from a place of the earth physically cleansing itself in the renewal, in the rebirth. But then there are also some that are tucking themselves underneath that to make you think that they are just natural events, and they are not. I'm going to say that again. There are things that are happening right now that are not natural events that are trying to sneak in and persuade people to think they are natural. And they're not. Not at all. Okay, so which one are you going to get into agreement with and alignment with? Because when we have an expectation of something, we are also contributing to the thing that some of these nefarious agendas are trying to bring online. So we have to be very aware of our own thoughts in that. When I was asking, okay, Lord, what's the solution? So if I see that thing, I'm not just having this for no reason. Like, what do you want me to do with it? And I just kept, it's just that impression continually, bring in the kingdom, bring in the thing that you know. And when I say that, I am only pressing in to the creator, the source of all things, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, and going, what is it that you created? Why did you create me? Why did you create her, or you that are watching this? What is your assignment and your mandate right now? And so when you get into that place where that is the only thing that you're listening to, and I'm talking outside of a religious box, because many different religions will begin to use certain belief systems, because that's what we see right now are belief systems that give people what they think is the power to govern other people. And so when you separate yourself from religious boxes and certain belief systems, I'm talking about many religions all over the world, you come into a different knowing and a different understanding of the kingdom is upon you. The kingdom is in your midst. The kingdom is within. And you begin to have a different revelation to be able to see things in a different light. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so we're battling for that right now. That's what we're battling. We're battling, of course, the two kingdoms, right? And which one is going to prevail. But there's a time that you have to be and take action. And if you're not taking action, you just become inactive because you see the illusions out in front of you, and then you become disillusioned of the illusion. And it's this cycle that people almost subconsciously cannot break themselves out of. And I think people are going to have to start, you have to take your own personal responsibility. I say this all the time. If you want the freedom, you have to be responsible to have the freedom. There's responsibility in that. And so a lot of people still like, hey, here's my hands, just tell me what to do, lead me, show me. And we're just not there anymore. We can't be there anymore.
We're not. And sometimes I wish that we could just still be there, because I want someone to hold my hand, because sometimes waking up and thinking for yourself means you have to be responsible for what you're thinking, because the people who are in that system come back and they start challenging that, and they go, where did you get that? And, you know, well, a good reporter looks at several different sources, and I'm like, well, I've looked at like 20. But, you know, it's really interesting, because waking up and learning to think for yourself is a whole different paradigm than when someone else hand feeds you. Yeah, it's a scary time to wake up and to be responsible for yourself and to learn how to navigate that well.
Absolutely. I think that's probably one of the biggest things that people are even battling within themselves right now is that, you know,
Yeah.
you don't know which way, because there's a lot of confusion. And if you can't see through the confusion, it starts to bog you down, and then you don't have the discernment. And then, am I being deceived? Am I not being deceived? Am I really seeing what I think I'm seeing? One of the downloads that I had this morning in that was the Spider-Man movie, and Deana and I had talked about this.
Yeah.
I don't remember which one it is, but he's battling and he sees all of the things in front of him, but it was really just a hologram. It was an illusion, but his thoughts agreed with the illusion. His mind agreed with the illusion. His emotions agreed with the illusion. And until he saw that that was not real, he wasn't able to overcome and defeat it, because he was still reacting to that. Remember, problem, reaction, solution. And when you stop reacting to the illusion, that illusion loses its power.
Absolutely. While you're talking, you're reminding me of the movie Wag the Dog. And that's what the whole movie, the premise of the movie was. Let's present something, right? Let's present a problem that wasn't a problem in the world at all. And then let's create a reaction and drum up music, drum up scenes, drum up whatever we can emotionally in the people. And then we're going to create a solution. And everybody gets behind this fake solution. And in this case, it was someone they pulled out of prison that had been there for 12 years for something he had done. But I mean, like, it is crazy how right now we're living in a world where there are literally two timelines going on. There is the version that is the illusion of what they want you to think is happening. And then there's the version of what's really occurring. And so there's their plan, and then there's God's plan. And what's beautiful is that all of us are, not just you and I, and not just our team, like so many people are learning to rise and to lean into the Lord and allow him to show them what is really true and what's not true. Because there's so much coming at us from the media, and there's so many of these medias that are owned by money that is behind the illusion. So
yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Let's take this into London Bridge.
Okay.
All right. Okay. This topic, I know that there's a lot of people online who will see that the three things we had talked about again: financial system, the Bank of England. I wanted to bring that in because there was some information that came out yesterday about the Bank of England wanting its banks to come into an agreement or come up with these new systems that if something happened to go offline, that they would not lose their consumers, what's the word? They wouldn't lose their, help me out, confidence in using the banking system. And so they wanted them to have this new system that would operate faster if something happens, it would be brought back up online, okay? And again, I'm like, we all know that those things are happening because there is a system collapse that's coming in order to usher in and bring in something new. And then also talking about the queen and the sovereign. Now, when you look at a monarchy, they call them the sovereign, right? So the queen or the sovereign or the king, whichever one you want to talk about. I'm talking about a queen right now because she is called the sovereign, who is actually having her 96th birthday in the Platinum Jubilee. Now, there's so many different directions we could go right now, but I want to mention something because this was part of the dream. I saw the 9 and the 6 mirroring each other in a mirror, and they flipped upside down because they are reverse of each other. They are a mirrored reflection of one another, okay? I felt like that was very significant. The other part of that is what I am looking in a mirror is projecting back onto me? Can I see myself as the sovereign? That was one of the revelations, because what we see right now is a perversion of the crown owns everything and has the crown land, and you are just sitting on it. Now, that's a kingdom principle, that the creator, the king, owns the earth, the creator of the earth. We are sitting on the crown land, and we are supposed to be the magistrates, the representatives. So there's a perversion in that. Anyway, so I saw the 9 and 6, the reverse perverse of it, the sovereign, but also the Jubilee. Because what do we know about a Jubilee?
Mm-hmm.
What do you know about Jubilee?
I mean, release of debt, everything shifts it. It's amazing. It's like, bring it back, Lord. We're coming back. We're there. We're right there.
Yes. Okay, so I wake up from this dream, and what am I singing? Not London Bridge is falling down. Nope, that was yesterday. In the middle of the night, woke up singing London Bridge is falling down. Woke up singing London Bridge has fallen down. And I have chills when I sing it right now, because I didn't realize it. And then Deana, we're talking, and she's writing out London Bridge has fallen down. And I'm like, yeah. But then I goes, oh my gosh, it's like someone tapped me on the shoulder. That's what I'm singing. That's what I'm saying. And I just had this place from I can't explain it except the Holy Spirit of going ding, 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 ding. I want to show you to have the faith and expectation of the things that you have seen are coming forward onto the earth right now. And are you going to get into agreement with what I am showing you, or the illusion of what you think you see?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Definitely. I think it's really cool, because I had no idea. I was like, wait a minute, I pretty much think I heard you say has fallen down. And so like I'm operating off the has. And then I realized when you say it, you hadn't even verbalized it yet. And I'm already operating it as though you did. When I look at the timeline of how the Lord has had this in our group, and I look at back in 2019, because I was looking at our notes, back in 2019 is when things started really coming up and out into the open. And we already knew that the election was going to be different. We already saw things. We already knew we were operating off of 2 timelines. We've known that long, all the way back into 2018. But when we got to 2019, the Lord started showing some things to you, and we already started paying attention to this whole financial system. We had been for quite some time, but really paying attention long before we went into the quarantine. And then all these things started coming to fruition. And I would say a lot of things began back in 2019 of this is to now has. And so a lot of things started moving perpetually behind scenes where people can't see it, but things have absolutely begun to happen. And we were seeing it before and during, and now we are standing in the has. It has fallen. And while we're still looking at a bridge standing right now in London, the system that is behind it has fallen, and I believe it's fallen. I believe the governmental structure has fallen. I believe the financial system behind it has fallen. I believe even the religious system behind it has crumbled. I also believe that the trafficking behind it is exposed, and it has fallen. So all of that is a part of that structure, that triangular structure between London, Vatican, and DC. And there's all these aspects that have been occurring. That's why I believe it has fallen. And so we see these structures that are up, but they're representation of long history that's operated in the system.
Yes.
Back to you, babe.
I see also the fear that it's going to cause in people.
Sure.
Especially people who are not paying attention. They still refuse to see it because it brings something up in them that's very uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
And there's going to be a lot of people that are going to have to face a lot of things. And what I see is in that, the reason that people are shown in advance is because you're the ones that can then give them some answers of maybe like, what's really going on? What do you mean? And you know, from prior dreams that I've posted on here, I have posted where I did see hyperinflation. I saw bread lines. I saw this thing where people thought that they had lost everything, but it was very short-lived because there was still a scare tactic, the illusion that you had lost it all, but you had not. And so if we have a time period like that, I hope that we don't, but I have seen that we will, and I'm praying that we don't. That's part of the interceding part of it. What will you do during that time to help people who are in panic, fear, uncertainty, doubt, anger? Well, some of the things that you've already seen are for that reason, so that you can help and uplift and exhort during that time to be a hope in this be the calm in the middle of the chaos, basically, And so one of the other things I wanted to mention too, as some of these systems are changing, today Goldman Sachs released that they were going to back loans using the Bitcoin system. That was really big, and there's a lot of people that are like, yes, absolutely, because it's crypto. But I also want you to be aware that there are plans from, let's just use dark and light. They all know that that system's crumbling. It has to. They're not stupid to that. But in that, make sure that you're not getting into an alignment and agreement with a crypto system that you see that is still very centralized, and one that is still entrapping and enslaving people and making them a debtor to this person over here who's the creditor, because that's not what we want either. We don't want to go into the same system with just a new name on it with the same conspirators behind that thing. So I also want people to pay very much attention to that as well, and who's behind these systems that are in play.
Absolutely, 100% agree. I have continued to see the more they drum up fear, and anytime I align with that, it actually reverberates into my household as a result of my awareness, right? Because we have a much larger awareness than other people who are plugged into what's happening in the world. But I have to be really careful about what I align with, because what I align with is what will prophetically start to show up in my atmosphere. And so when I separate from that and I go, okay, this is what they want me to come into agreement with, and when I position myself with the Lord and I see what it is that he's showing, and I come into alignment with that, I come into agreement with that, I start operating from a kingdom mindset, then I completely usher in something different into my household.
Right.
Which is to your point.
It is. And one of the biggest things that I'm always shown anytime around all of this is, if you want to move the mountain, you have to know how to move it. And there's a place where it's the expectation, but if you are constantly getting into agreement and putting all of your emotions, all of your thoughts and the will of yourself into the system that you think has to play out, because you still are operating under this very perverse reflection of what a kingdom is supposed to be like, you're getting into agreement with that. You're bringing that, you're helping them, right? The movies, the television scripts, the songs that you sing, that is a programming, and we have to learn how to deprogram ourselves. These things are not coincidences. These are plans that have been put in place. I saw someone message me the other day, and they were like, what the funniest thing is, and I'm kind of mad at them, is that the World Economic Forum kind of took some of the fun out of the theories and the things I was seeing, because they started telling everybody it was the truth. And I was like, yeah, kind of, but at the same time, some people weren't catching on, but they need your permission. You're someone who's really good to talk about the permissioning part. Would you mention that for a second?
The which part?
Of like when they put things out because they want your permission, like the subconscious, conscious permission of it.
Oh, well, you just said it so great. The subconscious, conscious permission and agreement with it. So, that's just like what the spiritual realm does on that perspective, is they offer something to you, and when you come into agreement with it, then it starts to play itself out, and you become unaware of it playing itself out, but then it plays itself out, and you're like, how did I get here? Well, the same thing happens, and it's almost like a structure that has been put in place in the spiritual realm, and they activate it in the natural realm, and they can present it through art, they can present it through plays, they can present it through music, they can tell you what they're going to do before they do it, so that it numbs it down, or when you are onto it as it's happening, they can gaslight you and say, no, you got that out of that movie, or no, you got that out of that song, or that's not what's happening. That is a conspiracy, when actually they've given you the truth before the truth actually plays itself out. And a lot of people like to use The Simpsons as an example, but we can just look at any movie right now and go, oh, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, we would have thought there's no way that's possibly going to happen. And then we see that there's actually been these footprints in the past leading us to the present, and it absolutely has been playing itself out. So is there a plan? Is there an agenda? On a nefarious side, absolutely, but is God's plan and his abilities bigger on the complete opposite side that sits on top of this whole system? Without a doubt, 100%.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And so it's asking the question to yourself, are you going to get into the agreement with the plot and plan, the illusion, or are you going to get into the kingdom perspective and what you are getting from the source of everything, the creator? I don't need to look at this source of the world and that source of the world and this false king and this false queen. And I'm talking those into just like very figurative, symbolic, because it can be in any system that we see right now that influence our societies and our cultures. And so it's like, do you want to continue to be enslaved to these systems, or do you truly want to be set free? It takes a lot of people to start standing up and using their own sovereignty. To be a sovereign being, you have to take the responsibility to do that. I talk so much about that because it's the theme of, if you want that, then you have to be an active participant in that. And so that's what I want to ask you today is, are you going to be an active participant? Are you going to get into agreement with the illusion? Or are you going to step away from it and go, no, you can't disillusion me anymore, or the illusion that you were putting forward? And so, you know, we see it all playing out, you know, and, you know, to end the dream that I had last night, it just brought back all the things with London Bridge. Oh, Deana, you have got to mention, though, the original London Bridge. Where is the original London Bridge?
Okay, so yeah, we want to say this really quickly, because the value of understanding that the London Bridge, the original London Bridge that, you know, you saw so many artists like do renditions of over the years, that particular bridge that stood for a very long time, it was sold in April 18th, 1968, which I think is no small thing. But so before either one of us were born, this bridge was sold. And then what's interesting is that the man who bought it, which is Robert P. McCullough, he actually went to Arizona and looked at a piece of land, which is Lake Havasu City, and he wanted to bring that bridge all the way over from London when he bought it, which is huge because it was a really huge purchase and made the Guinness Book record of, you know, the biggest antiquities ever purchased at this point. And so he moves this London Bridge over to the United States, and they literally have a space inside Arizona where they make a river, a lake, go underneath it, and they try to mimic the same lake as it's in London, exactly. But the person that he hired to come in and do this, I'm going to get his name because I just want you to have it, was C.V. Wood. And if anybody knows who that is, that was the mastermind behind the original Disneyland, which is no small thing, because, you know, Disneyland has got its own issues going on right now, and a lot of people who understand the history of Disneyland might find that interesting, that the architect came in and he took this bridge, brought it over, constructed the land to handle this bridge, and then they separated it from the main body of Arizona by putting water all the way around it, which made it an island, which is a whole nother issue. If the Lord starts giving you any download on that, please let Brandy know, because we would love to see what the Lord is showing you through these pieces. But then when you look at where the Hoover Dam is to this position in Arizona, that was one of the things the Lord had me look up just a little while ago, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. But from the Hoover Dam all the way down to Lake Havasu City, it's exactly 3 hours and 6 minutes, which is 166.6 miles apart from one another. Now, for any of you out there that understand that they show a lot of things in their numbers matter to them, symbols matter to them. Well, numbers and symbols also matter to the Lord. And so if you can take something that is in its beauty and you can reverse it and perverse it and put it out there from a different perspective, this doesn't feel like a small thing to us. It doesn't just seem like a point in history where, oh, the London Bridge was just erected just to have this neat place that people could invest in the land and make some money off the land. The fact that they carved out the land and did it in such a way to mimic London felt like a very significant thing. But more importantly, we were paying attention to the fact that the Hoover Dam was right up the way. And it seems like lately we've been watching the water, we've been watching London Bridge falling down to now has fallen down. And what will we see in the days to come? That's part of one of the things that was just a little fun road.
Yeah. We won't go into this right now too, but you know, a lot of people, I mean, just because waking up and singing London Bridge is falling down, I said it again, London Bridge is falling down. But the original song is London Bridge is falling down. There's some, look that up for yourself about the origination of that song. There's a couple of other of our team members that we, you know, intercede with and talk about these things with constantly that has also been led to that. She was also led to the 1970s and looking at the basically the prophetic cycle, a picture of things that are happening now that had happened then, and are we going to repeat them? Are we going to learn the lesson from them and take our sovereignty and say, no, we're not going to do that this time? So anyway, there's just a lot here. Oh, also with Lake Mead, you know, at the Hoover Dam, and if you can look at the water levels, it is Lake Mead, right? That's at the Hoover Dam. That the water levels have drastically, oh gosh, I can't even remember. I saw somewhere about the water levels and how many feet it had dropped right now. And so it's just like when you start seeing these things, and then you start seeing agendas behind them, but then you see God going, but just wait. All things meant for harm, I'm going to turn for good, and I'm going to give people eyes to see them. I'm going to give them new ears. I'm going to take the veil off and allow you to see something you've not seen before, so then you can take action. But here we are. We have to take action. We cannot be inactive participants anymore. Like, what is your physical vessel supposed to do in this hour? Are you to speak? Are you to teach? Are you supposed to run for office? Are you supposed to get involved in your or create a new business? Frankly, we're moving into a place of where technology is coming forward, and there's going to be a lot of businesses that have been operational for a long time in these systems that we probably won't have in the future. So what are you going to do to prepare in advance for that? And how can you be someone who's like, wait, I could create that thing? Are you going to be the creator of it? Are you going to partner with heaven and do those things and help those around you? So did you have anything else to add before we sign off of this one?
No, I'm just thinking at some point it would be fun to just talk specifically about the history of this bridge and what all is involved in this bridge, all the way back to when the Vikings took it down and took over certain portions of England at the time, and what all was occurring back then, to when it was erected and what happened during its erection, and then what the dark history that's behind the bridge, that's the exact one that's in Arizona, and how it fits into this triad of London, Vatican, and Washington, D.C. There's no small history in the London Bridge coming down. There's no small history in Ukraine being taken down and everything being exposed right now in the world, from Trident to the Caesarians to the history here. We're just like, we just trying to make it down in 30 minutes, but yeah.
This is like a 2-day talking all day long for all the information that over the last, 5 years, that has just been pouring in. And then it's like, when though you start to see things being brought back up again that you were shown long ago, you go, wait a second, wait, you know what? It's like that thing, you know, when you're like, verily, verily, I say unto you. It means pay attention, pay attention.
Right. I was listening to something with Michael Jackson this morning, which is crazy. I was going to bring it up to the present, but Michael Jackson was saying to a group of people, a big, huge crowd of people, he was saying, the history has been stolen from us. We have not been told the truth of our history. And so there's large pieces of history that are missing. And so I'm like going, these places that we've been going in our group has been relearning history and seeing things come to the forefront, not by just one source, but by so many different sources and scholars, and they spend their whole lifetime writing about something specific, and we get to step into their world for a couple of days, and then we step out and then go grab more information. And so it is no small thing what the Lord is bringing back to the forefront, so that we have the truth, so that we can go forward with the truth. Very much.
Amen. All right. We have to do a part 2. There's too much.
Yeah.
There's so much more we could say right now. Okay, we're going to leave you with that for now. Just to pray about it. Press in. What are you to do with the information? If you have wisdom or knowledge around something, what are you to do with it? It's not just to have it. And, I don't want to use ignorance in a word to make someone feel dumb, but we all have been ignorant for a long time and not had the knowledge of things. But then when you have the knowledge of them, you're like, wow, okay. And then because of the knowledge, you go out and seek the wisdom to bring the solution to the problem without letting the other, basically the perversion, create the solution, then to create a problem just to get you to the solution that they have created. So we're not doing that anymore. We're not. The invasion of the kingdom is here, and that's what we're going to see. So, all right. Okay, you guys have a blessed one. Leave us some comments below if you have any information, or if you have a piece of the puzzle. We would love to see what you have to say about this as well. All right. Love you guys. Bye, Dee.
Bye, babe.